Hello everyone, welcome to week 8. This week I am going to keep the screencasts shorter than usual. We had an awesome guest lecture last week. Guest lecture, I think that's just funny to say. I found some videos of a very famous scholar online and decided to have him talk last week. This week we are going to, we're focusing on romantic relationships. And so for the first discussion, I've got you engaging the text straight on and using that information from there because it's very clear, very easy to follow, and is outlined very, very well. For the second discussion this week, and it's something that's really important, I want to bring in some outside material here. And it's kind of mentioned in this chapter, but I want to talk about the top 5 challenges every long-term romantic relationship faces. And this is from research. This is not from experience. This is not from something I think. This is what the research says about romantic relationships. And so I just want to spend a few minutes here, and my goal is to do this in one 15-minute screencast. We will see if I can shut up quick enough. I don't know. We'll see. It's iffy. It really is iffy. So let's just dive in, okay? So the way that I like to frame this is this. I have students who ask often this question, okay? Before I make a long-term commitment to someone, what factors should couples strive to work out before committing to a long-term relationship? As we study the stages of relational development, you'll see that there has to come a point where you say, yes, let's go long, or no, this is over, okay? And we've talked about social exchange theory in here, and so this idea that we have to figure out whether or not we want to go long-term with someone is a very real question. And so what factors should couples strive to work out? Well, folks, the big 5. The big 5 are the ones you want to work out. So anybody who's in our class, and there are quite a few people who are in long-term romantic relationships, can probably attest to the importance of these 5 things. Okay? So, first things first. Sorry for the awkward mid-sentence that was coming on, and it happened. It was glorious. So I paused. I'm sorry for the awkward stop in mid-sentence there, but here we are back again, okay? Anyone who's been in a long-term relationship can tell you that these 5 things are definitely hot topics for couples to work out. And folks, we're talking about these are the big 5 across same-sex romantic relationships, across non-same-sex romantic relationships. The big 5 are everywhere. Okay, so these are the 5 things that are the biggest challenges couples will face. Okay, so communication, finances, children, sex, and third parties. Okay, and I probably shouldn't say sex and third parties together. We mean sex and then third parties. Okay, so what you have here are really the biggest 5 issues couples have to deal with in a relationship. So let's talk about them, okay? The first one being communication. Couples will deal with and fight about and argue about communication almost across the board. And even couples who don't talk about it probably have trouble with communication, okay? If you think you don't have trouble with communication, you should probably talk to your partner and see if they'll be honest with you. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have a problem with communication. We're talking about it in general here, but there are specific things. Like for example, me, I'm really good in some areas and I need help in other areas. So we're probably all that way. Communication, though, is not a panacea. And what that means is it doesn't fix everything. Good communication does not a great relationship make. But great relationships are going to have good communication. Make sense? So you want to have good communication. And you're in this class. Hopefully, you're learning some of the things and being able to apply them, and the people in your life are willing to grow and learn with you as you grow and learn. And that is what this is about, okay? Consider the impact of routine talk. The routine talk that you have with your romantic partner is extremely meaningful. The day-to-day grind and the ways you communicate through the day-to-day grind are important. And it actually creates the foundation of the relationship, of the meanings that you share together, the reality that you co-produce. Yes, the big stuff is important too. When you're in conflict or you're having to make a difficult decision, communication is in those times is important as well. But you've got way more routine talk than you have other stuff. And just like in last week, Dr. Gottman was talking about the state of the friendship in the romantic relationship. The state of the friendship is going to be so intimately interconnected with the communication going on there. So you want to make sure that you've got good, open communication more times than you have bad communication. Okay, we all make mistakes and we all are bad communicators from time to time. So we're looking at overall effectiveness. Okay, it's not about never making a mistake. It's about knowing when you make one and being able to repair, which we talked about last week, from that. Okay, so communication is a big one. Now, do people stay in relationships where there's bad communication? Yes, of course. But resolving it as an issue brings relief to everyone in the relationship. And so while people live with poor communication, either with themselves or with their partner, learning to have good communication really does make the relationship better. Okay? All right, so communication. Next. Finances, money. Here we are. There are practical things to doing life with another human being that cannot be ignored. And one of those things will center around money. If you go long term, you're probably going to live together. If you're now, if you're interested, by the way, to know when it's okay to move in with someone and when it's not, that's a whole different talk. The research behind that actually is pretty interesting, and it probably doesn't say what you think it says. The research actually says, by the way, that if you cohabitation is the word for moving in with someone, if you cohabit too soon, it hurts the relationship. And so the statistics behind it are not just really encouraging. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying do it carefully. Okay. Finances, though, are going to be a hot point, okay? Now, yes, there are times when you earn more and times when you earn less, probably, and there's an ebb and flow there, but how are you approaching finances? First of all, can you even talk about it? If you are with someone who cannot discuss finances, that is a major red flag. Now, if you've been with someone for a long time who can't discuss finances and you've figured out a workaround, good for you. People do. People figure out workarounds. But finances, yours versus mine versus ours, and ultimately, different people will tell you which approach is better. Okay? Ultimately, what approach you choose is up to you, but you need to talk about it and actually choose an approach. Okay? And ultimately, if you're going to do yours and mine, fine, talk about it and know how to manage it. Right? If you're going to say everything is ours, good, talk about it and manage it. Okay, in my experience, there's no one best way to manage your money as long as you're managing it together. Okay, even if that means you're doing yours and mine, you have the conversation where you talk about it, you come to a mutual decision, and then you act on it. Okay, so then one of the more important questions, and this actually is something that was echoed back last week in Dr. Gottman when he was talking about some conflicts that seem completely unsolvable are not about the thing that you think you're fighting about. It's about the meaning of the thing. And he references money. And so, yes, you have to work out the everyday details of the money stuff, but there's also the larger questions of what does money mean? And how is that meaning of money linked to your larger goals for life and your understanding of what it means to be in this relationship and do life together? Okay? Everybody has their own approach to money, and you probably have a different meaning for money than your partner. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have the same meaning. Awesome, go you. But figuring out and negotiating that meaning is very important. Okay? So communication, one of the top 5, because people either think they're fine at communicating and refuse to change, or just go through life trying to be okay at it and don't know how to get better. Hopefully you're getting better in this class. Finances are a very real and practical thing that you have to deal with because money means more than just a number. That number carries so much weight and so much power. It has existential meaning, not just a line item in a checkbook or whatever. There's much more to that. Next, speaking of things that are loaded, children. This is a question that all romantic relationships have to answer. And ultimately, do you want them? How many? When? Are there any children from previous relationships? This is a difficult conversation to have, but it is necessary if you think you're really going to go long term with the person you're sitting across the table from. Okay. By the way, I'm probably not going to finish this in one screencast, but it'll be like one and a half. We're doing good on time. Okay. So, do you want children? Well, you might not at the time, but do you think you're going to? You know, or are you like, yes, I want to do this and I would like to get started on it right away. I mean, depending on what life stage you're in, depending on what life experience you have, depending on your age, I mean, there's all sorts of factors that play into this. You know, how many? When? Kids from previous relationships? How, you know, doing the whole blended family thing is really difficult. It's doable, and it's been done successfully over and over and over and over and over again, but it takes work. And so what are you genuinely looking at with children? And then what are you going to do if you're like, yes, I want to have kids, and your prospective romantic partner says, no, I don't want kids, and I'm not ever changing? You know, it's a big question. It's a really, really, really big question. And, you know, it's one of those things that you need to discuss sooner than later. If you think you're going to be going long term with this person, you know, this is not first date stuff, by the way. The things that we're talking about here, not first date stuff, unless you know that there's some baggage you're going to have to get out of the way. Okay, you know, I mean, there's nothing that's completely off limits ever, but you probably don't want to. I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to be on the first date and go, hey, do you want kids? Because if you don't, I'm just going to leave right now. You know, like, there's no point in wasting my time sitting across from you eating the chips and salsa if you're not going to want to have a baby in the next 5 years or whatever. Because I do, and I'm not moving on that. So these things are really important. Do you want children? Yes or no? And then not just how many or when, but do you think you might want to adopt? Do you want to be a foster parent? You know, if they do and you don't, is that something you could then maybe be okay doing? Or are you like, no, that's a deal breaker? It's a big, big, big discussion here, okay? And it can really be a sticky point in relationships. Now, other things you can't exactly figure out with this right away, but you probably have different ideas of what it means to raise kids too. So maybe you can talk about how you were raised and how they were raised, and kind of see what they're from, because you don't, you know, if you're like, I want our kids to be on a schedule, and they're like, they need to live life, you know, that might be a really great thing, or you might kill each other depending on how well you communicate, right? Oh, that was a good segue. Look at that. Look at me linking that back to that. So those are the first three: communication, finances, children. Here we go, big five. Oh man, here we are, sex. Sex is a big piece of romantic relationships, and it bears saying that it is a need for some individuals. Yes, it's a need for humankind to continue to propagate the planet, but it's a relational need for some individuals. Now, does that mean that you should have to have sex before you're ready? No. Does that mean that you know, you have to be, your life has to be dictated by your partner's libido? No. What it means is that you need to understand that it may be a need for your partner, and there's real weight with this. Okay, how comfortable is each partner with various sexual activities? There's an adult conversation to have, right? What are the expectations? What are the things that are going on in your brain? What are you looking at? How often? Frequency. How often? You know, are you sitting across the table from someone who, you know, wants a trapeze in the bedroom and expects to play on the trapeze 90 times a week? Or are you talking about someone who's like, you know, once every 6 weeks? I mean, there's no real right or wrong there. Different relationships make different things work, but you got to talk about it. You got to deal with it. And then the number of past partners. Are you comfortable with the number of partners your partner has had? You know, for some people, compatibility means a lot. And for others, it doesn't mean as much. And hey, I'm almost done. I'll see you in the next screencast.